Hello, everyone, and welcome to Media Guild. We are with Super Team Germany in Berlin, and today we're going to be talking about storytelling for builders. Joining me here is my co-host Lucas Huitis and Marc, aka Wiimee.
Hi there.
Yes, so first of all, what's the Media Guild? Media Guild focuses on how storytelling messages and narrative design connect audiences with on-chain products and communities. And this is why we have Wiimee with us today. We're here to help projects translate creative energy into stories that build community and movements. And we will draw inspirations for the different episodes across the Solana and Web3 ecosystems. This time we're going to be focusing on wallet security and everything that comes with that. And we have a super interesting guest with us today, which is Wiimee, aka Marc. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I'm so excited to talk about this topic. I had a brief stint working in cybersecurity, and I always had more questions than answers every time I learned something. And only after a couple of years, really getting into it, have I learned to calm down and stop worrying about cybersecurity, figuring that I probably know enough, I hope, so that I can cover all my bases comfortably. But I think it's so important to talk about how it's not just about technology when it comes to security. There's a lot of psychology and storytelling that goes into covering all those bases. So we're excited to hear what you have to teach us today, especially in the Web3 space. I think it's kind of the Wild West when it comes to security.
It is.
All right, Marc, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? And maybe let's start with the first questions, how you first got into Web3.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Marc, aka Wiimee, and I went to the journey of NFTs or crypto in 2021 when everything was basically hyping NFTs back in the day. I think Luke, you and I, we met in the German Discord back in the day, and then joined a project which we can talk about later, which ended up being a rug, of course. But this was like my first entry to crypto because even though I have like a background in IT, I still hadn't like figured out how to buy crypto or to get into crypto at all. And then I was basically hooked from Gary Vee when he talked about NFTs like nonstop. I think he did it on his 5th of May episode where he always talks about that, like that's a special day for him. And he talked about like, hey, please have 1 Ethereum in your wallet, and then you can mint some digital collectible, and then yeah, maybe you can make some money off of it. And then like 2 or 3 weeks later, they talked about, hey, if you bought that for 1 Ethereum like 2 or 3 weeks ago, you can then sell it for 7 ETH or whatever nowadays. And my initial reaction was, this sounds cool and interesting, but obviously like I was in for the profits, to be honest, from the get-go. I stayed here not for the profits because these are long gone nowadays. But like the initial interest got me hooked because of the digital trading card collectible kind of things where you can maybe make a quick buck. And yeah, I developed into like a security advocate, if you want to say that, because I saw like how many people get scammed in the Web3 space on a daily basis. I mean, it was worse in 2021 and 2022 when we were at like peak levels of people entering the space. But still nowadays, there are so many people left that are not clueless, but are not informed enough to have all the tools and security stuff with them to be safe in the space.
So what would you say are the major differences between Web 2 and Web 3 security? Because obviously when you have centralized structures involved, then there's an entity that can act as an intermediary when there's security issues or disputes between the payer and payee. How does Web 3 change that dynamic?
So I think Web3 is actually pretty special when it comes to this because people are very used to this kind of customer service, as you just said, Arikia. Like they are used to pick up the phone and call someone and say, hey, I lost my password. Please reset my password. And this is not possible in Web3, especially when you're doing like self-custody on your wallets, for example, or even if you send a transaction to a wrong wallet address, right? It does have to be like one character that you got wrong on the address that you copied from somewhere. and you send it to that address, and bam, the funds are gone, because you cannot recover them unless you have someone who's like willingly enough to give it back to you, and that address is actually in use. So in Web3, we are very much on our own, and this is why I think like the security education and like the education about how important it is to be safe every single day is like the most common driver that we have, because I think that a lot of people shy away from Web3 because they know that they are kind of on their own here, which means like if there's a security incident, if there is some issue with my money, if it gets stuck in, I don't know, a centralized exchange, I have to, I don't know, contact a lawyer or whatever. And they are so used to the convenience of Web2 with banks, etc. So this is like a very stark contrast, if you will, to the customer service side we are used in Web2.
That's tapping into that. Do you think it changed, or what are the changes? Because 4 years in Web3 feel like 20 years in the outside world, basically. So has that changed in what direction and in what regard? How people see the security part, especially?
I think that the people who are in the space still, or have been in the space for quite some time, they have the basics down pretty good nowadays. So for people who are around here like 2021, 2022, they know like how a phishing scam looks like. They know how a phishing mail looks like. Like back in the day when it was just like madness on Twitter all day, everyone was posting links and everyone was posting like claim pages for random NFT projects or airdrops. People were falling for that like in mass amounts. And nowadays, I think that has gotten like a lot less. What we see still is obviously like big protocol hacks, for example, right? Where the user cannot even like have any decide in what happens to a protocol, for example. But I think like the baseline for the security type of things has been raised, especially for people who have been here for quite some time. So we still see scams, and we still see a lot of scams. Like we are teaching in onboarding security still with the classes, and we're doing educational content for revoke.cash as well. And we are still here out here every day to reach the people who need the kind of security content. And it's sometimes hard to even find the right audience, because the people who need the audience or the education the most, they aren't around like on crypto Twitter most likely. And this is why I, for example, joined LinkedIn lately and tried to do some videos on TikTok as well.
So how much of the issues would you say are like a picnic problem in chair, not in computer, versus malicious attacks that are coming in from the outside? Because I mean, we've all heard these wild stories about, let's just use like the overarching term of loss that happens in the Web3 space. And for the most part, what I've heard is because someone did something that didn't follow a security protocol when doing some transfer. Like I was talking to this guy at DevCon last fall in Bangkok, and he said he accidentally burned 25K by sending a coin over the wrong network, doing a transfer to himself, and it's just gone like that. But what is the attack scene like versus the self-error scene?
I think that most of the losses we see are user errors, to be honest. And this is why I'm still like around for the education part, because like if you can like separate like the big hacks, right? The protocol hacks that we see on not a daily basis, but like on a monthly scale in Web3, where a big protocol just like gets their contracts exploited, for example. This is not something that the user or the end user can like contribute to or avoid in any case. Because if they are trusting a protocol and the protocol ends up getting hacked by North Korean hackers, for example, there's nothing you can do as the end user to protect you from that, really. But what I see a lot is we can talk about like seed phrase mismanagement by users, which are like pretty common. People set up a wallet, they may forget to write down seed phrase, or they had a seed phrase written down, but then lose the piece of paper that they wrote it on. They gave wrong approvals, if we're talking like Ethereum kind of transaction style to contract that they shouldn't be interacting with, or they fall for serious like phishing scams, right? If we all spend some time in Discord, especially when we're around for a few years now, we have seen like how many people approach you on Discord and try to set up a deal, do you some good, set up a giveaway, etc. And as you just said, Arikia, like even you, if you like copy wrong addresses or fall for a scam that is called address poisoning, you might end up losing your funds because you end up sending them to the wrong address. And as I said, there are so many, like guardrails you have to be aware of that security cannot be overvalued really in the space. So I think like the users, they should have the knowledge because the tools and the knowledge is out there. Everyone who wants to can like read up on stuff, especially like now with AI and side of things, you can just like enter some questions inside of ChatGPT, for example. Please don't ever like share your seed phrases with anyone. But like if you have like simple questions, like is this link safe, for example, right? If you want to check if a link is safe, you can ask ChatGPT that, and they will tell you like this looks like a phishing link, for example, if they have like some characters spin around or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we go into that directly. So it seems like people always ignore security advice until something goes wrong. So how do you, is that the case most of the time? Do you see it like that? Yeah, it's like that.
Usually the people that we talk to, like I talk to a lot of people in private DMs, I talk to a lot of people in boring security tickets, I talk to a lot of people in revoke.cash tickets. And the funny thing is that in the revoke.cash tickets, I think like 95% maybe of the tickets we receive in the revoke.cash Discord are not related to revoke.cash. So the people do not have an issue with revoke.cash, but they lost funds, they sent funds to a wrong address, they fell for a malware, they installed malware on the device, they lost their seed phrase, etc. And they are basically looking for someone or some kind of entity to go to and ask questions to get some clarity. And I mean, we are a public good with revoke.cash. We tend to use to give these users advice like for free all the time. But that like the funding and public good, that's a topic for another episode, I think. But yeah, to go back to the question, Luke, I think that it's pretty hard for people to grasp the concept of if one time you do one thing wrong for one time only, right? We always say like the scammers have to be right one time only, and the user has to be right every single time. Like the one time you misstep, you lose, hopefully not everything, but you might lose stuff. And the scammer just have to get you one single time. And they have it like so much easier than the user because you have to guess right if you don't know what you're doing every single time. And as you said, the info is out there, like the educational content is out there, not just mine or Boring Security or Vogue. There are other like blogs, etc., YouTube videos, which are educating people. But people are not interested in security because it doesn't make them money, right? But if you lose your money, then they all come and say like, hey, how could I have not known this before? Because you never took the time to learn like the security basics.
Yeah, it's one of these situations where people only notice when things go wrong. Like I interviewed some people once that were doing influenza modeling, and it's like something you don't really consider, how a pandemic can spin out of control until it's happening. But so, okay, one of the big topics that we wanted to talk to you about today is about being undoxxed. So can you give us a bit of can you give us a bit of background about this state and why you chose to stay that way, what it enabled you to do, what it limited? Because I come from the writing journalistic world, and obviously pseudonyms are something that have been important going back centuries, that have enabled a lot of creativity and privacy. So what is that like in this era of Web3, and what was your decision tree there?
So when I first started out, I didn't really think about it because like back in the day, again, when we go back to the NFT hype circle of 2021, 2022, everyone was just like flexing profile pictures on Twitter. Like this was your status basically. Like if you had a Bored Ape or a Pudgy Penguin, or I bought a Lazy Lion, which was never a flex, but I thought it was back in the day. So basically everyone was just like showcasing, hey, I'm part of this community, and Luke can probably think about it as well. We used to follow people for just having like a Bored Ape Yacht Club profile picture or Mutant Ape profile picture. You thought, hey, this person is trustworthy because they are using like some high stakes profile pictures, which is like insane if you think about it.
Yep.
But as the space like matured during the time, then I realized that I should stay undoxxed for a while, because I am talking about people like robbing people on the internet, right? And if you talk about people who are robbing people on the internet, you get on the radar of people who are robbing people on the internet, which means like if they see my face or if they see my real name, they hopefully do not know like right away where my address is, etc. But they see some indicators which I wanted to keep to myself. And I have been struggling with doxing, especially because of the security part, for 4 years almost. But I came to realize that if I wanted to take a step further and eventually like be speaking at conferences, for example, appear in podcasts with my real face, I needed to like remove the mask, if you will. And I started like softly by just like showing myself and my face in the videos. And then I pretty much like revealed my first name, Marc, as you know now. And yeah, I mean, I meet with people in real life who are from Web3. The first ever meetup I had was with Roscoe Callis, who's the founder of Revoke.cash. So for trusted entities, I always was kind of doxed. Even Luke, I think we were connected on LinkedIn for 2 years or something, and we haven't never met each other in real life. But like I was very careful with who I revealed my identity to, because yeah, just like the reasoning behind it is just like, if you talk about drainers, if you talk about malware, if you talk about making bad guys less money, you will be put on their radar like automatically. And yes, I'm not like Zach XPT, so I'm not like posting pictures from themselves or any names or any like locations where they stay and party, etc. But you still like at the end of the day, quote unquote, take away money from them, even if it's just like best practice stuff that you share.
That makes a lot of sense. And once you revealed your face and your first name, how was the reaction, and how was it for you to actually switch from 4 years, no, you have the synonym and no one really sees you, then to being seen doing the videos? And yeah, how did that change everything for you?
So on the doxing itself, no one really cared, to be honest. So I was putting like a lot more thought into it than it was really like worth it. But you never know, like even like with the bad actors, they might just like take notes quietly, right? So you don't know that they are not going to tell you straight away. But like for the most part of Web3, for me personally, creating got easier, because before, if I did videos, I recorded like screen caps, for example, or put some B-roll in, some footage that was like on the websites where you can download it. I always had to fill up the sequences where I would have shown my face otherwise. And now I can just like talk straight to the camera and show like, I don't know, my screen once in a while. And this helped me like being more creative with my stuff, because I can just like grab my phone and record a quick video, a quick note if I see something on the timeline or whatever. So this is something I really was looking forward to, because I think it kind of like kept me below a ceiling. I felt I was like touching a ceiling when I was anon or undoxed, and now I have like unlocked a bit more creativity to even show up as myself in podcasts and podcast clips, etc.
Nice. And what was the emotional journey like for you? Because I remember when I was getting into the depths of cybersecurity, being a journalist who wrote under my real name, which is one of the weirdest names in the world. Like there's only one. So I don't even have the ambiguity of having someone else with the same name. I just was super paranoid all the time. And just understanding how cybersecurity worked, it created these possibilities of potential harm that could come to me when I was interacting. And obviously you have extensive knowledge about cybersecurity. So was there any fear or worry in your process about undoxing yourself?
Yes, a lot. And it's not only because of myself, but because of people close to me. Like, even if I'm not a target, someone close to me could become, right? So this is like, as we see with the kidnappings and stuff, like in France, for example, like you don't even have to be in crypto to get like dragged into this. So I was very careful with this because like it's pretty easy if you know who I am to like not find out where I live, but you're gonna find like a destination. You're gonna know that I'm in Germany because I have that in my Twitter profile, like first thing. But then I decided and reflected on myself and thought like, hey, if I have this problem, like every single person on the planet Earth in cybersecurity has to think about it as well. They all have to be afraid of it. Every single influencer on Instagram, every single YouTube channel holder who has like a bigger following, who has like people following them around, or ever showed like some kind of belongings, like they have like nice cars, a big house, etc. All of these people are basically targets as well. And again, I was just thinking that I don't actually go after scammers, so I don't expose them. I just do best practices to do to keep the users safe. And I think this might be a bit naive, but I think that on the other side of things, like the bad actors, for them it would be boring as well if there weren't like the security educators who try to make it a bit more complicated for them as well. So I myself, I can, like, for example, I can see if a scammer did like quote unquote a good job on setting up a scam which is convincing to someone. Like I can acknowledge that, like, hey, they did a good job here. And I think on the other side they can acknowledge as well when we educate people on the other hand pretty good as well. But yeah, like honestly, like the worst thing that I wanted to avoid is someone else getting like dragged into this because of me. But then again, I thought about it like, hey, I didn't show any like huge valuable NFTs or huge token holdings because I don't have them. I wish I would, but I don't have them. So if anyone's coming to get my wallet, you're better off stealing something else from me and not my wallet.
I like that. Now you put it out there. You'll be safe.
Maybe they will get me something for taking the pity.
I like that. Okay, let's talk about security is super complex. We already touched this really briefly, but how do you make people to actually listen so they understand security? How do you go about that?
So I've tried a lot of approaches. Like obviously back in the day on Twitter, it was just you saw something, then you tweeted something like, hey, this is a warning, please do not click on this link. It's out there and that's enough. Just yesterday, I received a mail from PepsiCo, which was the real email sender from PepsiCo. And they offered us a collaboration with OpenSea to mint an NFT. And it was a scamming or phishing email. And it was signed by the official Pepsi website or the mail signer, which is pretty scary because it was pretty convincing. So that took off yesterday on my timeline, but this is what we did back in the day, right? We were just telling like, hey, this website is a fake. Hey, don't click this. Hey, this NFT token is a rock, etc., etc. But then you came to realize as the space matured, people didn't care as much. And I had to change like how I approached security. So I changed to kind of like a storytelling angle. And if you can see, like, if you think about post on security taking off on your timeline, like getting thousands or 100,000 of impressions, it's usually someone telling, hey, I have been scammed. This is what happened. Blah, 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 blah. So they are telling a story to the audience and the audience is clicking the story because they are interested in what happened. So you cannot just like give them like, hey, here are 10 safety tips. Please follow them. No one will do that in 2025 or 2026 going forward. You have to find creative angles and do some kind of, storytelling. I lately started a series where I just like have some fictive scenarios, like not real life scenarios, but I just like made up a story and posted it on the timeline to see if it sticks. But yeah, I think my account is shadow banned. So I don't have as much reach right now.
So then what other modes of storytelling besides X/Twitter are you exploring in your daily life? And like, how much does media production and content come into play in terms of like everything you do on the whole?
Yeah, I tried TikTok, but I think that still, if you go outside of the CT circle, like you leave Twitter and you expand to other platforms, especially like Instagram or TikTok, the perception of crypto is still very shady, to be honest. I think like most people who hear about crypto, like even my own family, the first time they heard that I'm going to be self-employed in crypto, like full-time, they told me like, what are you doing? These are all criminals. I was like, oh, okay. I'm trying to avoid people like falling for the criminals, but that's great. But yeah, like I think that even outside of crypto Twitter, we still have like even more work to do, because we still had to onboard people with like a positive image towards crypto, which means that they have some first steps and first touching points with people with crypto, which are positive and which are not like a scam on WhatsApp where someone says like, hey, if you invest 1,000 euros today, I will pay you 5,000 euros back tomorrow or something like that. Because this, if I talk to my normie friends, quote unquote, they always have this kind of perception of crypto. So I think if you crack the code and if you know how to engage people and let them know about the positive sides and the upsides of crypto, you could really win big on other platforms. But I haven't done that myself yet. And especially with security, to wrap that up, maybe security is a very boring and unsexy topic, so to speak. And no one cares about it until it's too late. But then it's too late and we can't help anymore.
Just one tangential follow-up to that before we move on. Have you noticed anything relating to some of the content moderation systems or policies that have changed drastically in the last year since the advent of AI, and maybe like combined with some of the legislation that's been changing in the mega social media companies that's impacting how crypto is moderated or perceived on these platforms? Like, for example, I heard of some colleagues in the Solana community getting posts taken down or blocked from Medium just because they mentioned crypto, because maybe the people or automated systems moderating just flag anything that is somewhat in the realm. And how are these systems impacting what you do?
So I think like from a reach perspective, I think we all have to fight like an uphill battle. And it's not just myself, but I talk to many people who do some kind of security work in Web3. And I think that because you're using, or I'm using certain terms like phishing, seed phrase, drainer, victim, etc., I think these are quote unquote bad words for the algorithm, right? Because like obviously people who are scamming people use them as well. Like if you post on X, hey, I've been scammed, there are 1,000 bots approaching you and say like, hey, you have to report this to account XYZ on Instagram, right? So I think there are some barriers in the way which do not help us with creating content for educational purposes. And especially on the media side, I think YouTube lately, they have a new policy which has been rolled out where they are banning crypto gambling content on YouTube, which is kind of so and so, because obviously a lot of people who gamble are onboarded to crypto. So that's kind of meh. But on the other hand, there are so many scam videos on crypto topics on YouTube. Like again, if you're talking about like leaving the CT bubble and expanding to different mediums, even on YouTube, like crypto is perceived so shady by a lot of people. And if you don't have like the audience who's really interested in your content, it's really hard to stand out. So I think like it's good for the part that the crypto videos who are just like blatant scams and phishing attempts are taken down off YouTube. This is a good thing. We've seen a lot of these MEV front-running bots where they are saying like, hey, I can code you a MEV front-running bot, which makes you $10,000 a day, like in passive income, which is obviously not true, because everyone would do it if that was the case. But a lot of people fall for these scams, right? Or even videos where they say like, hey, like the good old, if you sent me 1 Bitcoin, I sent you 2 Bitcoin back, right? It's just like, it's not happening only in Web3. This is something we have to keep in mind as well, because people do get scammed in Web2 as well. Like there are so many Enkeltricks, as we call them in German, which is like elderly people getting scammed because someone is faking a call from their aunt or something. And yeah, like phishing or like in general, like bad actors are everywhere, but they are especially around in Web3 because I think it's super easy to not get really traced in Web3. So like if you're doing like a bank deposit or whatever in real life, it's pretty easy to follow that. But especially in crypto on several chains, you just throw money into mixes, etc. You have a pretty good chance at escaping that.
All right, so let's switch the view a bit, because we talked a lot about the end user perspective. How about the project's perspective in caring about security, making it secure, how to get your users to securely use your dApp platform, whatever, in Web3? What, maybe you have a take on this as well?
Yeah, if you think about like the first thing you do when you get onboarded in crypto, it's like information overload, basically, right? Like think about like the first time you signed up for crypto, you set up a wallet, and the first thing you have to do is write down the seed phrase, 12 words, 24 words, maybe even 25 words. Like you're entering a space where you don't have any clue about anything, and then you get information overload with here's a seed phrase, please make sure to share it with never with anyone and never lose it, right? It's your first point of touch with crypto. Like if you have the safe custody wallet, is here's your seed phrase, make sure you don't share it, no one sees it ever, and please don't lose it. Like don't have your cat eat it, right? So this is like a worst case scenario if you wanted to get onboarded. I mean, we have other solutions where we're talking about like custodial wallets, for example, where they keep the keys for you, and you can just like make your first baby steps on that part, which is a good thing, I think, if you're just starting off with crypto and you're not planning to mint 100 projects or buy 100 different meme coins on a chain. So this is something that I think is a big barrier, because people think that, hey, I basically need to have like a cybersecurity degree to be able to join this space. And then what also happens is, I think, is that our space also complicates stuff a lot. We have like terms for everything, which is like to a normie outside makes no sense at all. We're saying like, hey, we have approvals, we have seed phrases, did you do your wallet revocations, etc., etc. So this is something that I think could be fixed if we are talking about like making onboarding a bit more easier for people to understand. And this is what I'm trying to do as well. I often use like analogies when I talk about security. For example, I use house keys when I'm talking about private keys and public keys as a story, right? Because everyone knows, hey, what is a house key? And if someone has my house key, then they can open my house and steal everything from it, which makes sense. But this very tech aspect of crypto makes it harder for people to join. I think, especially like in an age range, when we're talking about maybe like, I don't know, I don't want to be rude here, but maybe like 50 plus, right? Or maybe even 45 plus or upwards, people having a hard time to grasp these concepts. And Luke, to come back to your question, I just like weaved off a bit. I think that the projects which join the space and are focused on security, they should make security like a mandatory part of their story. So everyone knows like, hey, we audited our protocol, for example, right? We do regular audits on the protocol that we're having. We are focused on security because, I don't know, someone of our team is always there if you have any questions when it's related to security. We have like initiatives where people just like revoke approvals once a month, for example. And what's also very important is, I think you can win as a project is when you as a project grasp that, as an outsider, I want to be joining crypto, but I have no clue about the terms. I don't know anything about the seed phrase, about approvals. I don't know like if I have to switch chains, if I send something to some different addresses. And if you embrace that as a project and place yourself as a project where you say like, hey, if you are a newcomer in crypto, you can always come to us because there are no dumb questions. I think you can pretty much build a loyal user community here, because everyone's basically trying to make money in crypto, and no one cares about educating people. And everyone is just like showing off, hey, this is a nice protocol, we have this and this, our chain is that fast, etc. But if you actually try and care for people to understand concepts and be safe and move safely in the crypto environment, I think this is what builds like a user base which is very loyal and trustful to you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And what's your take on, because you briefly touched this now, with, for example, we have Privy and some others where you basically log in with your mail and everything gets set up in the background. Do you think that this is a good way to get new users, or do you see some problems there down the line? Because as I see it for now, most of the time for every platform that uses this, you get a new wallet set up and it's not the same. So yeah, what's your take there?
So I think like for initial onboarding, it eliminates a lot of friction. So again, if we're talking about people like 50 plus years old, sorry for picking that age category, but just like top of my head was like a 50 plus is probably like the threshold where someone says like, no, this is not for me. VFriends, for example, they lately introduced the VFriends wallet, which is a preview wallet, as you said, Luke. And yeah, they are just letting people sign up with their email addresses. What you have to know about that is like later down the road, as you said, is it can come with complications and like probable errors, because if you don't have security properly installed on your email address, for example, like if you're not using two-factor authentication on your email address, all it takes is your email address, like your password, to get hacked, and then someone has access to your wallet, right? This is like the main issue that I see. But on the other hand, it's very like positive for users to not have to tingle around with like a seed phrase, installing a MetaMask, etc., etc. So they are just like logging in like what they are like used to in Web 2 life when they are logging into, I don't know, like Amazon or Google or whatever, right? They're just using their password and their mail, which makes it easy. And I think like ultimately this will be the goal, or this will be the ultimate goal that we have in crypto, that we are still using crypto, but the user is not like recognizing what's going on under the hood, and they don't have to do any of these tech steps because that's taken care of by the protocol, the wallet, or whatever.
Yeah, I think this is one of the biggest challenges in the space, because crypto has such a bad rap in certain communities, and you almost don't even want to mention it when you're building in certain product spaces. But on the other hand, there are so many benefits to this technology that with the right demographic, when you're explaining it, it makes perfect sense. And
yes,
to not mention it would be remiss. But I still remember when I first installed either the MetaMask or Phantom or both browser extensions, and this window popped up that said, "Are you sure you want to do this? Because this company can read everything
yes,
in your browser now." And then I clicked away. I needed a little more time to like process that and make the decision, and it still makes me feel weird. Like, could they have maybe designed the user interface a little better, or been more specific about what information they were going to access through the browser? Or is it one of those things where you really just are giving them everything for the benefit of using their product, and you kind of just have to trust that they're not going to exploit the access that they have because the company is good? But like the first article I read when I woke up this morning was about the LastPass security
no.
disaster. And I remember when I was going to like a crypto party in New York and learning about password managers for the first time 10 or so years ago. And I remember thinking, am I just being paranoid by wondering if the password manager itself is a liability? So yeah, there were a lot of questions jumbled in there, but any thoughts reflexively that you have about that?
Yeah, I think like there's a lot of trust involved in crypto still, like especially if you're using third-party stuff, like for example a Ledger wallet, right? I remember the Ledger PR disaster when they rolled out this Ledger Recover feature, which they basically told everyone in the crypto space like, hey, with this firmware update, we are able to shard out your seed phrase and may be able to recover it. And everyone was like, what? You lied to us all the time. And this was just like, I think Ledger was in a bad position because they were the first ones to admit it, that it's possible. But at the end of the day, I think like every hardware wallet provider could just roll out a firmware update and do that eventually. So if you're not like trusting like an open source kind of company, which you audit yourself, which honestly like no one is doing, like who's reading open source code, for example, on their Trezor devices, right? Like there are some nerds, probably like less than 0.1% or something in the space who do this, but like as we're talking about like mass adoption or crypto normies entering the space, no one will do that. Like no one will go to the extent and read any open source code stuff. So yeah, there's still like a lot of trust involved. And with the LastPass thing, Erikia, the issue with LastPass was that people were using cloud backups with LastPass, and then they got breached basically, and the data got into the wrong hands. For example, password managers, if you run them offline on your machine and you don't have any like synchronizing stuff enabled, which is synchronizing it to the cloud, you should be pretty fine, unless someone breaks into your home and steals your PC and then brute forces the way into your password manager. But this can still happen. But like, using a password manager is not like a wrong thing to do. You should do that, especially like for all your logins. But if you can avoid like having these online backups, it's good, because then again, everyone is still having such a bad security. Like even in Web 2, people are not using 2FA, right? Who's using 2FA nowadays? In some apps you are forced to, like in mobile banking apps, right? You are forced to enter like I don't know, like your phone number. Then again, like SIM swapping is a thing. Thankfully not in Germany really, but it's a thing. So phone numbers should be avoided whenever you can when using 2FA. But then again, like who's using an authenticator app? Who's using a YubiKey? You can just like expand this all in all. Yeah, you guys are like pros and you know what you're doing. You're hosting a podcast here. But like if you're talking like even about the audience, like who will listen to this, there are probably like less than, I don't know, 5% like using YubiKeys or authenticator apps to secure their stuff. Like even in Web 2, which is the thing. Like we bring bad Web 2 habits into Web 3 and then expect them to work, which obviously doesn't.
But then what about the old adage, your data is only as secure as the creepiest person in the company?
Yeah. I mean, think about the case that Coinbase had, right? They had some kind of external customer service, I think from India or something, and someone stole the customer data. And now you're getting all these SMSs where they say, hey, your Coinbase account was phished. And you say, hey, fuck, I don't even have a Coinbase account. Because they're just losing like the principle of just like, we are gonna meet someone who's a Coinbase user and they're gonna panic, and then they're gonna call the, I don't know, like United Kingdom phone number, and they are telling us their seed phrase or whatever.
So it's still a problem.
I think personally, I think like if you want to be 100% secure, like I think no company will ever be 100% secure, like none. And especially you, even myself, like I am not bulletproof to scams, right? Even I could fall for a scam if it's very sophisticated, or someone, I don't know, sets up a deep fake for Lucas today and calls me or whatever, right? It could happen. So you got to be on your toes all the time. And this is why like education, I will probably never be without a job when security education is the thing, because like it's always needed.
Yeah, well, watch out. We're not going to send you an email that says we really need your information right now in order to post this podcast. Send us your bank details.
All right. So maybe going back before soon wrapping this up already, what's the difference? And you touched this already a little bit, but you have been creating content for yourself under a synonym, now showing yourself as well. But what I want to know is, what's the difference between creating content for yourself, doesn't matter if it's under a synonym or not, and writing or creating content for a company? Because you did both, right? And I know that Arikia did too. So I think this might be something that's super interesting for people to hear. what's the difference for the person behind that if they're writing or creating content for themselves and for someone else?
So one thing I would check from the get-go is if you like kind of match their tone of voice, which makes sense. Like if you're like the normal kind of casual writer, let's say, like you're using very casual words because, for example, I'm not a native English speaker because I'm German, and you have like that kind of vocabulary where you're talking about things in a simple way, but they want to have like a very academic style of writing, for example. This is a clear mismatch, for example, right? You probably are not going to be happy with creating content for them if you have to jump to every single feedback loop. I wrote 2 articles for Ledger when I joined in 2022 or something, and it was like, yeah, pretty extensive to like go through the feedback loops and fix the spelling they wanted to have and have the structure that they wanted to have. And down the road, I just focused on creating content for brands which kind of match my interests, which is security, obviously, but it also gets pretty not dangerous. It gets pretty complicated if you're doing security for multiple companies, because you're always taking content out of the same bucket, you know? I could create content for Wiimee, I could create content for Revoke, I can create content for Boring Security, I can create content for Chain Patrol, and they are all like in the same niche. And you can take the content piece and put it online on every single of these accounts, and it will perform different, but it's basically like the same style of content. So what I would expect or advise you on is like if you have like a passion project, try to nail that down with one brand if you want to work with them. And then if you have like a broader scope of things you want to talk about, maybe use another topic for another brand. Like, I don't know, like maybe talk about coins for one news article site, and then talk about, I don't know, like Solana ecosystem for another one, right? So don't be too niche down, because this will hurt you at the end, because it will probably hurt your brand as well. And if you build out your personal brand, it will help you get more deals down the road. This is an interesting thing. And what I wanted to point out here is that you have to figure out if you are like a match with the company. So I think in Web3 we have like a very lean, a very chilled culture, at least with the companies I work with, and they are all like pretty open-minded and let you do your thing, and then they just take a look and say like, hey, maybe we have to rephrase this paragraph, etc., which is perfectly fine. But if you're just like constantly getting feedback that you have to rewrite this and this is not how we want it to, maybe just don't do the work for them, because you will not be happy at the end of the day. But on the other hand, like you have to match their tone, right? If you're like doing work for a company, Revoke, Boring Security, you don't want to like have some kind of, I don't know, teenage slang, which they end up looking bad at the end of the day.
So, okay, you keep referring to security as boring and unsexy. What can we do to change that? I was wondering what the middle letter was.
It's Boring Security. It's like
so
the
maybe
Okay.
briefly touch on that.
Yeah, Boring Security is like a free educational resource. It's like a public good, basically. We are hosting live classes throughout the month, where you can just like sign up and come join a class, which is usually like 1.5 to 2 hours long. We have like pretty much beginner class, which is the 101. We have a Solana class. We have a social media security class, which is also super interesting for people who are just like doing social media work, for example, in Web3, right? So they know how to not get phished, how to have some proper 2-factor authentication installed on their devices or their logins, etc. So this is all free. Again, I'm doing classes for them as well. And yeah, you're asking a good question, Arikia. If I know how to not make security that boring, I would be probably just posting content and making millions of impressions each week, but that's not the case. So yeah, I don't know, like maybe people would be more open to listening. I thought about like doing a show where we maybe like interview victims, maybe not showing their faces or their identities, but have them like talk on the show and go through the process of what happened to them. Because what happens to victims is, and this is what we cannot forget, the funds or the money is one thing, but like the guilt or the depression that might come afterwards, like when they lost like a fortune, this is something completely different, right? It could just throw somebody like completely out of life if they lose $50,000 today, for example, right? And it was their life savings or something, and they got scammed. Because this is something that I have to like pretty much like underline here too, is like, if you lose your money in crypto, like if you fall for a scam, the chances that you get it back are literally like less than 1%. There's like no chance you get the money back, unless it's like a big crime scam ring that somewhat gets busted, and then you have like some kind of portions you might get back. But if you fall for a phishing scam nowadays and you get drained, you can say goodbye to the money, basically.
Yeah, there's one podcast that does that really well. Not the scamming, but the interviewing of victims and also the perpetrators. Some doxed, some undoxed. But it's the Darknet Diaries. So
Gotta give
maybe,
that a listen, I think.
yeah, it's so good. It's my favorite podcast other than this one. But there's definitely more room for expansion in that topic. So if you're going to be doing those sorts of interviews, make sure to let us know.
Yeah, definitely. And I thinking about it now, maybe I mean, the Solana ecosystem, especially in Germany, is super big, and I think it would make a lot of sense to offer the course to them, like a security course. If you do this, as you said, they're free, and making the ecosystem safer.
We're all ears.
Is there anything you can think of specific to Solana in terms of security? Like what could this ecosystem be doing better, or what do they do well compared to others?
I think the code basically to keep users safe is to have a better UI or UX, because I think this is still so super clunky in wallets. And like, we have warnings nowadays, as you talked about, Arikia, before, with like, hey, we're giving like access to every website that you're visiting, or hey, you're giving this contract approvals to access all of your funds that you're like approving to them. But still, like, what does it even mean to an outsider who's not into crypto as much, right? Like, yeah, I know they get experience over the month or years they are in the space, but like, for a newcomer, what does this mean? Like, be precise, be open, communicate like crystal clear, give the users warning, like have them swipe additionally to make them like fatigued of this kind of messages, because I think it's too easy to fall for scams. And I would like have like certain things you can do on Ethereum EVM chains, like not giving approvals, etc. But I think Solana works pretty different with approvals and stuff, so it's not as easy to revoke stuff on Solana, because they don't use approvals as much. Starting with like basic advice, I would say, like, if you have a certain amount of money in crypto, please make sure to always use a hardware wallet, because what people do not realize is the moment you are using your desktop PC for everything, like you're using it for browsing, you're using it for gaming, you're using it for your business, you're using it for, I don't know, visiting this podcast, and you download malware on that device, and you're only using a software wallet like Phantom, for example, the moment you install the malware, they will steal your private keys and your seed phrase, and your money will be gone. So if you're using a hardware wallet, you're at least guarded from that to fall like for a bad download and have everything drained at once. And yeah, like hardware wallets nowadays, they are like starting at 50, 60, $70. And if you have a certain amount in crypto, like, I don't want to name numbers, but like $1,000 or whatever, €1,000 maybe, like start getting a hardware wallet and use that regularly.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, before we go into the closing part with a few rapid fire questions, one last one. What's your vision for the next evolution of Web3 security, education? Do you have a vision for that? What would be the best case?
The best case would be, as I said, that people are not really recognizing that they are using crypto. So they are just like under the hood kind of things that we're using to leverage the technology. But on the other hand, again, like improving a lot of UI, UX to have users really understand what is going on. Because I think we have so much experience in Web 2 everyone is pretty much used to like warnings in banking apps nowadays, or warnings with phishing mails entering your mailbox. And I think Web 2 has done a pretty good job on this side of things, because also media is also covering this a lot, right? Like even radio stations, etc. They are talking about, hey, someone just lost money because they pretended to be their nice whatever, and they took money away from them. And it would be really helpful if we get the space to agree that security is not like an afterthought, but it's actually something we need to participate all in, and everyone can just like be someone who has some advice for someone who just started in the space, because it doesn't have to be like a boring security educator telling you all these kind of things. Lucas and Arike, I think you two are personally pretty good fits for that as well. You can also help someone like, hey, use a hardware wallet. Hey, make sure you check the URLs you're visiting, etc. Right? Use 2FA, as we talked about. Use YubiKeys. Use authenticator apps. This is like common sense, but it doesn't get like talked about as much, because again, it's not like a sexy viral topic, if you will. Everyone's making money, or everyone's doing a quick flip, and I don't know, got like the next big airdrop and made like 10K from an airdrop he wasn't expecting. This kind of topic gets rewarded in our space, and I think it's sad, but it's the reality we have to face, and we can only like do our best to be present and be there if the audience wants to take the information.
Nice. Okay, so we've covered a lot for users, but what about for builders? What's one piece of security advice specifically for builders? Because the funniest thing about the LastPass story was it said they used the worst possible security as a company that they could have used. And so you don't want to be reported about in that way as a company, right? You want to take precautions.
Yeah, I think that like if you follow the common sense type of things, that, for example, let's talk about like a builder. Let's say we're talking about an artist here, right? You're doing art on Solana, for example. The worst thing that can happen to you if you're using like a phantom wallet, and that wallet gets compromised and all of your identity gets stolen away with it. Again, follow the basic steps, like use a hardware wallet. Make sure that you're following basic security guidelines, like checking URLs you're interacting with. Don't fall for everything that gets sent to your inbox, especially when you're like in an upcoming project, or you're an upcoming company that just has some exposure, for example, in your ecosystem, and then you get inquiries, for example, on Twitter, on podcasts or whatever, right? And you just click on them and you join them, and then you realize, hey, I just installed like a malware. I joined a fake podcast. They now have remote access to my computer, etc., etc. So you have to do your due diligence. This is sadly something that we probably won't be like freed of, but you have to make sure that you're like, especially in Web3, you stay safe. And it's not just only about like your digital footprint kind of thing, but you always have to keep in mind that you want to stay safe with your operational security as well. Which means, for example, if you are at a conference, DevCon right now in Argentina, right? If you're there, post pictures after you left a venue, for example. Because if you're posting a picture like, hey, I'm at the beach, hey, I'm at the clubhouse, hey, I'm at my hotel room, people might start to follow you, and then something bad might happen to you, and you don't want to do that. So yeah, delay the information that you give out to people.
That makes sense. Okay, you need to really pin down the next answers because time is almost up. One myth you want to kill around security.
Let me think. A wallet connection cannot drain your wallet.
That's a myth?
That's the myth. It cannot. So if you just connect, nothing is happening.
Perfect. And one more.
What's the top thing people should start doing today, not waiting until tomorrow?
Use a hardware wallet. And if you have a hardware wallet, have you ever tried if the seed phrase backup actually restores your wallets? Have you ever tested your backup?
That's a good one. And to add to that, never enter your seed phrase from your hardware wallet in your browser extension. I've seen it so many times.
Yes.
It's not a hardware wallet anymore, right? That's
correct.
not a myth.
That's correct.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you
Well, I
so
think
much.
that's it for today. Yeah, and thanks
1
a
hour.
ton.
1 hour. Exactly.
I know that flew by.
So people can follow you on X under Wiimee. You can see this here. He has the tag there under his name. Also on TikTok, right? With the same name? Is it the
I
same?
think it's Wiimee_ETH on TikTok because the name was taken, but everything else like YouTube, X, Farcaster, it should all be Wiimee. Yeah. Discord.
Perfect.
Hopefully whoever has Wiimee isn't going to try and use it to impersonate you.
Oh.
Not to give anyone any ideas.
I'm
Okay.
using my real face now, so that's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll post some more links underneath this video on X to where else you can find Marc's projects and sign up for the classes.
All right.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining. That was super insightful.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Marc.
I think that's it.
Thanks for having me. It was a great talk.
Stay safe out there.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.